Brothers and sisters, I am often asked why the teachings of Jesus place such a heavy emphasis on the need for human rest and the relief of burdens. The human condition is frequently characterized by a chronic fatigue that physical sleep alone cannot resolve. Jesus observed that individuals are often weighed down by the rigid requirements of social systems and personal expectations. Rest, in his teachings, is presented as a spiritual sanctuary where the need to prove one's worth is eliminated. The most significant burdens identified are those of internal guilt and the constant fear of falling short. Relief is achieved through the realization of a divine acceptance that is not based on performance. This state of peace is offered as a gift rather than a reward for a person's labor. The concept of the yoke illustrates a partnership where the weight of life is distributed and made manageable. The source of this rest is described as being defined by gentleness and a humble spirit. By aligning with these qualities, a person experiences a reduction in their internal emotional turmoil. The teachings suggest that the human soul requires a specific environment of quietness to function correctly. True rest involves a deliberate movement away from the pressure of constant productivity. It is a return to a state where the heart remains calm even when the external world is chaotic. The focus of life shifts from the accumulation of achievements to the preservation of inner peace. This transformation provides a stable foundation that prevents the spirit from breaking under stress. The mechanics of this shared burden deserve a closer look. The concept of the yoke in these teachings signifies a cooperative effort rather than solitary exertion. Historical systems often imposed weight on individuals without providing the necessary strength to carry it. In the framework presented by Jesus, the burden is described as light because the primary strength comes from the leader of the pair. This relationship redefines the nature of work from a source of exhaustion into a purposeful and shared activity. A yoke is technically designed to prevent friction and injury during labor by distributing pressure evenly. It ensures that the pace of life is determined by the stronger partner to avoid individual burnout. The teachings emphasize that the mind is freed from the persistent anxiety associated with independent survival. There is a clear distinction between the external pressures of the world and the internal ease of this spiritual partnership. Many individuals experience fatigue because they attempt to carry weights that were never intended for human shoulders alone. The lighter burden is found specifically by relinquishing the desire for total self-reliance. Harmony is achieved when the individual stops resisting the direction and timing of the divine guide. This alignment creates a steady rhythm that sustains a person through long-term challenges and repetitive tasks. Energy previously spent on worry is redirected toward a meaningful and calm presence in the current moment. Rest is thus transformed into a continuous internal state rather than a temporary break from physical activity. The design of this spiritual tool allows for consistent movement without the high cost of emotional depletion. Intellectual and emotional capacity is preserved when the ego is no longer driving every effort toward a result. The focus remains on the quality of the journey and the stability of the path taken. This stability is maintained by leaning into the presence of a companion who is familiar with the terrain. the specific nature of the rest promised to the soul requires further examination. The perspective on sacred time was shifted from a series of prohibitions to a platform for human flourishing. Traditional structures often prioritized the observance of a day over the actual condition of the person inhabiting it. The teachings clarify that time is a resource provided specifically for the benefit of humanity. Biological necessity and the restoration of health are viewed as legitimate expressions of spiritual alignment. A rigid interpretation of rules often results in the neglect of the weightier matters of compassion and mercy. The focus of rest is the active preservation of life and the immediate alleviation of distress. True repose is not merely the absence of physical labor, but the presence of restorative activity. The narrative shows that physical hunger and illness do not wait for a convenient schedule to be addressed. Meeting these fundamental human needs is presented as an act of harmony with divine intent. The spirit is burdened when the structures originally intended for help become sources of additional pressure. The teachings remove the fear of violating human-made boundaries during the pursuit of wholeness. Rest is depicted as a space where the individual is seen and valued apart from their social or economic function. The inherent value of a human being exceeds the importance of any religious or societal system. Quietness and recovery are necessary components of a sustainable and balanced existence. The mind is encouraged to recognize that the pursuit of well-being is not a violation of sacred principles. Restorative practices are integrated into the life experience to prevent the onset of total exhaustion. The rhythm of existence is adjusted to accommodate the fragility and complexity of the human frame. Every moment of genuine stillness provides an opportunity for the body to return to its intended state of health. Understanding the role of the mind in this process of restoration is the next logical step. The depletion of the human psyche is often the result of chronic anxiety regarding physical survival and social standing. Jesus taught that the mind remains restless when it is preoccupied with the acquisition of material necessities for the distant future. A primary observation in his teaching is the inherent futility of worry as a problem-solving mechanism. Anxiety is categorized as a mental exertion that yields no practical increase in one's lifespan or physical capabilities. The natural environment is used as a case study to demonstrate a functional system of provision that exists without human intervention. Wild birds do not participate in organized agriculture or storage, yet their nutritional needs are consistently fulfilled. Similarly, the growth and aesthetic complexity of wildflowers occur without the stress of manual labor or industrial production. These examples illustrate that life itself is a more significant gift than the food or clothing required to sustain it. The teachings suggest that if a person is granted life, the secondary requirements for that life are already accounted for in the divine order. Mental rest is obtained by narrowing the focus of concern to the boundaries of the present day. The cognitive load of tomorrow's potential problems is considered an unnecessary and damaging addition to today's actual tasks. By prioritizing the search for a higher spiritual order, the secondary aspects of existence find their appropriate and balanced place.
This shift in perspective prevents the fragmentation of the mind that occurs when too many variables are managed simultaneously. Trust in a reliable source of provision acts as a stabilizer for the nervous system. The intellect is then free to engage with reality without the distorting lens of fear or scarcity. A mind that is not perpetually defensive is a mind that is capable of profound and lasting recovery. Peace is found not in the accumulation of wealth, but in the reduction of the perceived need for control. This mental framework allows for a sustained focus on ethics and purpose rather than mere survival. The environment in which a person chooses to seek this peace also plays a significant role.
Jesus established a recurring pattern of physical withdrawal from society to maintain internal equilibrium. High-demand environments naturally deplete the finite emotional and mental reserves of any individual. The practice of seeking solitude in desolate places served as a deliberate countermeasure to the pressures of public life. Silence acts as a filter that removes the clutter of external opinions and social expectations. Effective functioning requires a periodic disconnection from the needs and voices of other people. The wilderness or the mountain served as a neutral space where the spirit could refocus without distraction. This intentional isolation was not a sign of weakness, but a disciplined component of health. A constant state of availability leads to the dilution of a person's core purpose and energy. Restoration occurs most profoundly when the sensory input of the busy world is temporarily suspended. Private reflection allows for the processing of experiences that are otherwise overwhelming. The teachings suggest that a person's public output is directly sustained by their private stillness. Even during moments of extreme urgency, the priority was placed on the necessity of spiritual retreat. Solitude offers a unique perspective that is unattainable in the middle of a busy schedule. The replenishment of the soul requires an environment free from the obligation to perform or produce. True strength is cultivated in the quiet intervals between periods of intense activity. This rhythm of engagement followed by withdrawal prevents the onset of compassion fatigue. Individual identity is reinforced when one steps away from the roles played for others. The mind requires the absence of conflict to integrate new insights and maintain stability. Withdrawal provides the clarity needed to distinguish between essential tasks and superficial distractions. The practice of retreating ensures that the internal compass remains calibrated despite external turbulence. The internal landscape of the heart requires its own specific kind of maintenance. The internal state of rest is significantly impacted by the weight of interpersonal conflict and the retention of grievances. Jesus taught that holding on to the offenses of others is a form of intensive spiritual labor that yields no positive outcome. This state of resentment creates a continuous drain on a person's psychological and emotional resources. Forgiveness is presented as a practical tool for the immediate cancellation of internal debt. By releasing the demand for retribution, an individual severs the emotional link to a past injury. This release is not described as an endorsement of harmful behavior, but as a necessary step for personal liberation.
A heart that is preoccupied with counting wrongs is a heart that cannot experience complete stillness. The teachings suggest that the act of extending mercy creates a reciprocal environment of peace within the self. The removal of the burden of judgment allows the mind to return to its baseline of calm. Energy previously spent on maintaining a defensive posture is reclaimed for more constructive purposes. The reduction of internal friction is essential for long-term spiritual health. A person is freed from the exhaustion of acting as a private prosecutor of their peers. This simplification of the emotional landscape leads to a more sustainable way of interacting with the world. The absence of malice provides the clarity needed for genuine reflection and growth. Rest is finally achieved when the ledger of social debts is cleared and the need for vengeance is extinguished. The metabolic and emotional cost of anger is recognized as a primary barrier to spiritual repose. Relinquishing the role of the moral judge permits the nervous system to exit a state of constant high alert. True tranquility is found when the mind is no longer calculating what it is owed by others. This transition from a justice-based focus to a mercy-based focus stabilizes the inner life. This internal clarity has a direct influence on how one perceives the concept of true wealth.
The pursuit of material security often generates a distinct form of mental and physical fatigue known as the burden of accumulation. Jesus identified the collection of physical assets as a task that involves significant long-term risk and maintenance stress. Tangible wealth is inherently susceptible to environmental degradation, social instability, and the natural cycle of decay. A life centered on the preservation of property requires a state of constant vigilance and defensive planning. This vigilance creates a restless internal environment where the individual is effectively managed by their possessions. Rest is facilitated by a strategic shift in investment toward internal character and spiritual maturity. These specific internal qualities are immune to external theft, market fluctuations, or physical erosion. The teachings advocate for a simplification of one's lifestyle to reduce the cognitive load of asset management. A person's focus and energy are naturally directed toward the location of their greatest perceived value. If the primary value is placed on temporary objects, the mind remains in a state of perpetual instability regarding potential loss. Stability is achieved when the heart is anchored in principles that do not change based on external circumstances. The reduction of material complexity allows for a more profound and uninterrupted engagement with the present. Choosing a standard of enough eliminates the exhaustion inherent in the endless pursuit of more. This philosophy prevents the slow erosion of peace that accompanies the fear of losing social or financial standing. The spirit finds repose when it is no longer required to guard a growing inventory of perishable goods. By devaluing the temporary, the individual gains a permanent sense of security that requires no manual labor to maintain. The role of human ambition and the desire for status requires careful, objective analysis. Social status is frequently pursued at a high cost to an individual's long-term psychological health. The drive to occupy the most prominent positions in a hierarchy creates a cycle of permanent competition and social fatigue. Jesus observed that the constant desire for public recognition and the best seats results in a state of chronic anxiety. True rest is found when the internal requirement to be perceived as superior to others is abandoned. Greatness is redefined in his teachings, not as a position of authority, but as a willingness to provide support to others. This reversal of the traditional social pyramid removes the exhausting pressure to maintain a curated image of importance. A person who adopts the mindset of a servant is functionally immune to the insults or status shifts that devastate the ambitious. The mental energy required for self-promotion is substantial and is often redirected toward genuine human connection once the ego is minimized. A humble self-assessment provides a grounded reality that protects the spirit against the volatility of public opinion. By voluntarily choosing a lower profile, an individual eliminates the fear of being publicly displaced or demoted. Leadership is presented as a weight of responsibility to be carried rather than a trophy of ego to be displayed. The ego is identified as a demanding master that requires constant external validation to maintain a sense of security. Relinquishing the title of the greatest allows the soul to exit the arena of constant comparison and judgment. Stability comes from an identity that does not fluctuate based on the rank or honors bestowed by a community. The reduction of pride leads to a significant decrease in the internal friction experienced during daily social interactions. Humility is presented as a resting state where the heart is no longer striving to prove its inherent significance. This mental shift ensures that the individual's peace is not contingent on the acknowledgement of their peers. The connection to this level of humility and the concept of childlike trust is a vital component of the teachings.
The state of childhood is utilized in the teachings as a functional model for the elimination of psychological complexity. Adulthood is frequently defined by the accumulation of defensive layers, cynical filters, and the heavy burden of self-sufficiency. Jesus identified that the intellectual effort required to maintain a persona of sophisticated independence is a primary source of exhaustion. Rest is achieved by reverting to a mode of existence characterized by directness and the absence of social pretense. A child does not expend energy on the strategic management of their reputation or the calculated acquisition of influence. This simplicity allows for an immediate and unfiltered engagement with reality that the adult mind often lacks. The teachings suggest that the most profound spiritual truths are accessible only when the desire for intellectual dominance is removed. A receptive posture is more conducive to internal peace than a posture of constant interrogation and doubt. The cognitive load of trying to predict every outcome is replaced by a reliance on a higher source of wisdom and care. Trust, in this context, is not a lack of intelligence, but a strategic decision to stop carrying the weight of the unknown. By acknowledging a state of dependence, the individual is relieved of the necessity to be the ultimate authority over their own life. This shift removes the paralyzing fear of making an incorrect decision in an unpredictable world. The spirit finds a resting place in the realization that the primary responsibility for the universe does not rest on human shoulders. Complexity is often a byproduct of the ego's attempt to control variables that are fundamentally beyond its reach. The transition toward childlike simplicity reduces the internal noise generated by conflicting desires and anxieties. Transparency of heart eliminates the fatigue associated with hiding one's vulnerabilities or mistakes.
Authentic peace is the byproduct of a life that no longer feels the need to justify its own existence through complexity. The individual returns to a state where they are capable of receiving care without the guilt of perceived inadequacy. The relationship between this internal simplicity and the physical health of the body is a significant aspect of the narrative.
The physical body serves as the biological foundation for all spiritual and intellectual experiences. Chronic stress manifests as physical symptoms that diminish the overall quality of human life. Jesus addressed the human body not as a separate entity, but as an integral part of a unified person. Healing and restoration were frequently demonstrated through the immediate relief of physical suffering. The human nervous system requires a perceived state of safety to transition from survival mode to a restorative mode. Internal peace acts as a biological stabilizer that reduces the production of stress-related hormones. The teachings recognize the body's fundamental need for nutrition, movement, and the regular cessation of labor. A body that is constantly pushed beyond its natural limits becomes a barrier to clear thinking and spiritual reflection. The design of the human frame includes a built-in biological requirement for periodic dormancy and repair. Spiritual rest directly influences the physical heart rate and the depth of the respiratory cycle. Treating the body with respect is presented as a fundamental component of a balanced life. Many physical ailments are identified as being exacerbated by the weight of unresolved internal tension. The alleviation of the mind's burdens provides the necessary conditions for the body to initiate its own healing processes. Wholeness is viewed as a state of equilibrium between physical demands and the spiritual resources available. Sleep is described as a specific gift that should be accepted without the interference of a guilty conscience. The physical presence of an individual is more effective when it is fueled by a rested and healthy anatomy. Respecting biological limits is a practical application of the humility required to accept one's humanity. The maintenance of the physical self is a prerequisite for the sustained and effective service of others. True health is the complete alignment of the physical, mental, and spiritual aspects of the individual. This integration ensures that the body does not become a prison for a weary spirit. The role of specific words and communication in this healing process is worth examining. The verbal output of an individual is a direct metric for the health of the internal source. Reckless speech acts as an irritant that generates social and emotional friction. The labor required to maintain a complex web of deception is intellectually and morally exhausting. Jesus taught that the heart is the reservoir from which all communication flows. A heart filled with peace produces words that act as a restorative agent for both the speaker and the listener. Simplifying language to a direct yes or no removes the need for oaths and elaborate self-justification. The reduction of verbal complexity leads to a significant decrease in interpersonal misunderstandings. Silence is often more effective at preserving energy than the effort of constant explanation. Words intended to manipulate others create a long-term burden of accountability and guilt. Truthful communication serves as a stabilizer for the community and the individual mind. Gentleness in speech is presented as a method of de-escalating conflict and preserving internal calm. The weight of one's words can either add to or subtract from the collective burden of a group. Careful speech prevents the fragmentation of a person's integrity and social standing. Listening is a passive activity that allows for the reception of wisdom without the expenditure of ego. The teachings suggest that a person is sustained by the life-giving nature of the messages they internalize and share. The exhaustion of arguing for one's own importance is eliminated through the practice of modest speech. Language is a tool for building structures of peace rather than walls of defense. The avoidance of idle and destructive chatter preserves cognitive resources for more significant tasks. A restful life is reflected in a vocabulary that prioritizes clarity over ornamentation. Communication that originates from a place of stillness has the unique capacity to calm the environments it enters. The role of the community in sustaining this individual peace is equally important. Isolation serves as a significant multiplier for the perceived weight of any personal challenge. The structure of a healthy community is designed to act as a functional safety net for the individual spirit. Jesus modeled a life within a circle of companions to demonstrate that human existence is not intended to be a solitary struggle. A group operating on the principle of shared responsibility significantly lowers the risk of individual emotional burnout. Exhaustion often reaches a critical level when a person believes they must solve every problem in total isolation. The distribution of burdens within a community prevents any single member from becoming permanently overwhelmed. Authentic connection involves the honest acknowledgement of one's limitations without the fear of social penalty. The presence of others provides a necessary corrective perspective during periods of personal crisis or distorted thinking. Communal rest is achieved when the group prioritizes the well-being of its members over the completion of a project. A culture of mutual aid replaces the competitive drive that characterizes most modern social hierarchies. The psychological relief of being accepted by a group stabilizes the nervous system and promotes long-term health. Social fragmentation is identified as a primary stressor that accelerates both mental and physical decline. In a supportive environment, the specific burden of one individual becomes the collective concern of the many. This cooperative approach ensures that no person is required to struggle beyond their inherent capacity. The synergy of a unified group produces a resilience that no individual can generate through personal willpower alone. Belonging to a purpose-driven community provides a sense of security that reduces existential anxiety. The focus of the community remains on the health of the relationship rather than the speed of the output. Quiet, consistent cooperation is more sustainable than the high-intensity effort of individualistic competition. A community that adopts a gentle and humble posture becomes a harbor for those exhausted by the world. The strength of the collective bond acts as a shield against the external pressures of a high-demand society. The way an individual views their past can also influence this current state of communal peace. The relationship between an individual and their personal history is a frequent source of invisible exhaustion. The past consists of a fixed set of events that no amount of current mental labor can alter. Ruminating on past failures creates a repetitive cognitive cycle that consumes energy required for the present. Jesus introduced a framework where the past is recognized but no longer allowed to function as an active burden. Regret is identified as a heavy psychological load that provides no practical benefit to future behavior. The teachings suggest that a person's identity is not a permanent prisoner of their previous actions. Mental rest is achieved when the drive to retroactively fix unchangeable mistakes is abandoned. Renewal involves a logical decision to separate the current self from the history of that self. The past is treated as a completed narrative that offers data for wisdom but lacks the authority to judge. A clean spiritual slate is a functional repositioning of the mind rather than a mere emotional sentiment. The psyche requires a reliable mechanism for the permanent disposal of accumulated guilt. Self-reproach is a form of internal friction that prevents the spirit from reaching a state of equilibrium. By acknowledging a higher source of mercy, the individual is relieved of the duty to be their own prosecutor. This shift allows the mind to focus entirely on the integrity and tasks of the current hour. The energy previously spent on maintaining ancient shame is redirected toward constructive growth. Daily renewal acts as a filter that prevents the buildup of long-term emotional debris. A rested spirit operates from a position of current reality rather than historical condemnation. The weight of one's history is lifted when the identification with past errors is formally severed. Memory is then utilized as a neutral tool for learning rather than a weapon for self-punishment. The liberation of the mind from the past is essential for maintaining a sustained state of internal peace. The final integration of these principles provides a complete picture of the intended human state.
The integration of these principles results in a life characterized by structural integrity and sustained internal quietness. Rest is not a destination reached at the end of labor, but the fundamental method by which all activity is conducted. The heavy weights of ego, material accumulation, and interpersonal resentment are systematically identified and removed from the psyche. This process leaves the individual with a manageable set of priorities focused on the immediate requirements of the present. The mind operates with maximum efficiency when it is no longer divided by the demands of the past or the anxieties of the future. A state of peace is the natural equilibrium of a spirit that accepts its inherent human limitations and dependencies. The internal environment remains stable regardless of the fluctuations or pressures found in the external world. Life is no longer perceived as a series of obstacles to be overcome by the sheer application of individual force. Instead, existence is experienced as a rhythmic movement within a supportive and well-defined spiritual framework. The cessation of internal conflict allows for the preservation of all biological, emotional, and cognitive resources. A person who functions from this state of rest becomes a source of stability for their surrounding community. Every teaching emphasizes that human value is an inherent quality rather than a product of social or economic output.
Clarity and kindness are the natural byproducts of a heart that is no longer occupied with its own defense. The transition to this state marks a shift from a life of constant striving to a life of consistent being. The finality of this rest is found in the objective reality that the individual is no longer required to justify their existence. The structure of the inner life is permanently reorganized around the core principles of gentleness and humility. This alignment restores the person to their intended functional capacity within the natural and social order. The burden is effectively removed because the self is no longer tasked with the impossible duty of total self-sufficiency. Peace is defined as the presence of a calm heart that remains unaffected by the noise of a high-demand society. The teachings provide the blueprint for a life that is fully integrated, healthy, and fundamentally at rest. The search for internal stillness concludes when the mind stops seeking and starts inhabiting the truth.